Welcome. If you can hear this, going live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Just like the man says. First people in, go ahead and throw something up there. Let me know I'm not screaming my thoughts into the void. And as a reminder, as you guys trickle in, and for those of you watching later, for everyone on Patreon, link is in the description of all my previous videos, and it'll be in this one after it's posted. Everyone gets entered into win free stuff if you're a paid Patreon member. And for this month, anyone who's in there by the end, you guys have heard before, so if you tell Mike, you will get, the winner will get the Leehoos water resistant emergency radio with hand crank. It's got a great battery in it. Worked for 4 or 5 minutes plus off of 30 seconds of hand cranking with weather bands, AM, FM, flashlight. You got an emergency light that hooks up to your phone jack and a little fire extinguisher vial bottle. So all that together will be get to one winner. And I'm gonna do the drawings from now on. Instead of the exact first of the month, it'll be the very beginning of the first live stream for the next month. So in this case, I think it's the third, which I will do the drawing, and you get different number of entries depending on what tier you are on Patreon. So go ahead and jump in there. Helps me out. I can last at least 30 seconds. What are we talking about? Talking about watching this live stream. We got 11 people. We got lots of stuff going on, and could have even more going on in a few short days, if you know what I mean. Definitely weird times. Weird times. And I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on the matter once we get into it. But of course, the big news, not big news, but big topics. And if you're wondering why I'm so horribly shaggy right now, it actually really bothers me. I was doing it for my Halloween costume. Let's see if I can get the screen share. I was trying to be a pirate. You guys can start the pirate jokes. There we go. And then my girlfriend, can you guys see that? Had a real sword. So I figured I'd make a pirate costume. Didn't have a real flintlock pistol though, so that's a replica. But my girlfriend dressed up like my parrot. It's good stuff. Hello, everyone. For the cranking. Yeah, 30 seconds of cranking is all you got in you, huh? Welcome to the club. Yeah, so that's why. So I'd probably get rid of this because it's really boring. Maybe I'll prepare for the apocalypse. Do some training, some dry run, if you will. But yeah, because it bothers me. Real sword? Hell yeah, real sword. What do you think? Ask me a serious question. Yeah, exactly. Booty. I refrained from bringing a big pile of pirate booty to the party because I didn't want to lose it. But I have literal pirate booty, and you guys know, the guys, the ones of you who have been subscribed for years, remember the days that I had the 800-ounce silver dump in a real treasure chest. That video should still be up on the channel. If you guys want to see me dump 800 ounces of silver, and I think some gold, into an actual treasure chest, pirate style, you should find that video on my channel. I think it's just called 800-ounce silver. Yeah, booty and plundering. It's all good. So yeah, so in a mere 8 days, of course, we have the U.S. elections, which from a prep, obviously politics in and of itself isn't directly related to prepping, but especially these days, to the extent that it affects domestic issues, civil unrest, potential disruptions of all kind, something that we got to cover, especially with everything that's going on in the world and in the country. What's up, Donna? So what's going to happen in 8 days? What I'm seeing, I've already done early voting here in Nevada. We had it as an option. I went out there the first day and did it. I think it's smarter to do it early. And all the early voting data that we've seen from the states that are doing it so far could be described as catastrophic for Democrats when compared to previous years. It's not that the results in and of themselves viewed in a vacuum are that dramatic, but the polls and the early voting, usually Democrats have massive leads going into. So to have a small lead or no lead at all is a dramatic change. So like Trump was, I think, 4 points technically behind in the polls going into 2020, which he won. It was like 8 points behind, supposedly, I think, going into election day. Like at this point in the election in 2020, an election that he lost very closely, even on if you take the results at face value, it was razor thin loss. And now with the polls and everything, he is dead even or ahead in a lot of these swing states, combined with these massive voter registration and early voting swings in favor of Republicans. It bodes very well for us. We just need to push hard across the finish line, not slack off now and be ready for anything. The fact that they're obviously in desperation mode, which is dangerous, but it's also a good sign. But their floundering is very tepid and like trotting out some fake accuser from 30 years ago, went nowhere. Literally coming out to do a 3-minute breathless press conference where you call Trump for real this time, actually Hitler, and then leave without taking questions. Hilarious desperation. That's a good sign. But like I said, it does make them dangerous. I tend to think that they are not going to. We saw the one thing that I thought that they might do. I'm not really expecting, or wasn't really expecting, anything too crazy domestically. Maybe there always could be another assassination attempt or something like that. But what I really expected to try as like a last ditch effort was the Iran conflict with Israel. And even if it wasn't the US that wanted to do that, maybe Israel themselves, seeing how likely we are to get a Trump presidency at this point, even if you only think it's 50-50. And despite the fact that Trump still is Israel's bitch to a much more extent than I would ever prefer, he is obviously, provably, historically, much more likely to avoid conflict than the other side. So him being in presidency makes it much less likely for Israel to be actually kind of sanctioned to do any serious attacks in Iran, like nukes and serious stuff like that, which I'm sure they want to do and would do if the US would sign off on it and pledge to support. So, Trump has a history, and I've said this in one of the videos before, where he comes out with the red, and it's something that I'm actually bad at, because I'm just like, this is what I want, and I will not move on this line. And then that's where we go from there. But that's not actually the best way to negotiate. And his tactic, and he's even written books about this stuff. So it's not like we don't know that he's doing this on purpose, is to basically come out with these insane kind of claims and promises and threats, whatever you want to call them. And then when you actually get into the moment to have a dialogue or a negotiation about it, your actual goals are not even close to that. So it's so much easier to get them. So if you tell, like, we're going to make you pay for the war, we're going to make you build it, we're going to send all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then you get in there and they're like, well, we're not going to do anything other than this and this. And you're like, okay. But if you had just said, all I want are these couple reasonable things, then that's when the negotiation starts and they try to push further from there. So, he had said he was going to nuke Moscow. And the bottom line is you do have to be actually willing to do the things that you say. And people have to know that for this tactic to work. And he is, or at least he seems crazy enough to them that they believe it. And so that tactic works, but it actually, most of the time, results in much less actual conflict and much better concessions than pretending like you're not going to do any of this stuff while truly willing to do it, or just becoming someone that you literally can't trust, which is what the government has been doing for generations. Is part of the reason why this conflict with Russia and Ukraine began. Obviously, I do think that this is based on them protecting the hegemony of the dollar system, but it was Russia's, actual Russia that initiated direct war with Ukraine, but it was a result of all the, broken promises, not necessarily contracts, but they would make these promises basically over the years and then keep going back on them, that allowed Russia to think that they had no choice. It ain't over till the fat lady sings, and there's no way they don't have some more tricks up their sleeve. Correct. So we got to be frosty. I wonder if they will even announce a winner that night. We have seen a disgusting number of few states come out and say, "Oh, we won't have the counting done for 8 to 13 days," which is an absolute embarrassment. And anyone who's like a supervisor election or governors or anyone who's involved at any extent to some debacle like that should just be instantly fired because there are states, countries, and everything else that have way more people than these. Like Arizona was one of them, so they have way more people than Arizona by a factor of like 10, and Florida, and get this stuff done day up. So what I'm happy if it's close, if it's actually close, whether that's a result of shenanigans or not, then that could be a problem. Not actually knowing results for a week, they have to do all this crazy stuff. But if it is looking like a big lead, and every other state that does it right on time, like Florida, like all these other states, and even some of the supposedly, not battleground, what they call it, flip states or whatever. If all of those start coming in, Trump, especially by decent margins, then you're going to see less ability and desire for states like Arizona and Pennsylvania to really try to finesse it because they might not be able to, and it might not even matter. If you get if the way it's looking, it's possible for him to sweep the swing states. I don't necessarily think that is what's going to happen, but it's actually possible, especially with that. I think it is what would happen without any shenanigans. There will be shenanigans. There's already has been. We've seen people like literally people are starting court cases over bogus registrations and stuff like that. But so it is possible that there will be enough of a margin that it's just not possible for them, and the dragging out wouldn't actually do anything. Because like I said, the early voting stuff is very positive, and while that the early and mail, while that traditionally has favored Democrats by huge margins, the swings in registrations and early and mail voting in favor of Republicans from the last election is immense, like catastrophic. Like it is not, I don't think, overstating it if you're looking at it from the perspective of the Democrats. It does not mean it's by any means a done deal, but it certainly couldn't really ask for better at this point in the race compared to previous years. Other than, of course, it would be really nice if we had actually been able to fully defeat the methods by which the fraud was enacted last time. They did a little bit of it in some places. As I had said back in the past, like if they don't do anything about this, there's no point in voting again if they do nothing to prevent voter fraud. Some states like Florida and a few others have actually done some things about it, and they're doing things about it currently. To whatever extent they're having success, it is at least being worked on. So Trump already won my statewide. Yeah. They only have to throw a certain specific place, nothing else much matters. Right. But it depends. Like I said, you have all these like 7 states that are supposedly swing states. So obviously Pennsylvania and like Arizona and stuff are big ones. But if he starts getting up huge leads in Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, Arizona, or Nevada, and then like, yeah, Pennsylvania and Arizona, it still matters, but it would be a lot harder. And certainly a lot harder to cover up malfeasance if the margin that has to be overcome is much more insurmountable. Do other nuclear level countries take Kamala seriously as a leader? Of course not. I mean, of course not. Harris went to a black church today. She got booed. Well, it's not surprising. She should get booed by any Christian church because at one of her recent rallies, someone shouted out Jesus is Lord. She said, "I think you're at the wrong rally." So they should say, "Okay, we'll go to the other one." Literally saying your religion is a sham. That should get her booed trying to go into a church. I voted yesterday here in Louisiana, mandatory ID to vote. Yeah, it's absolutely insane that you don't have to prove your identity to vote, especially considering the hypocrisy at which they want to enact, complete authoritarian control for every other aspect of our lives, like like travel of any kind, vaccine. They literally wanted us to have to show vaccine cards and ID for everyday activities. And now they're saying you shouldn't have to do it to vote. It's just absolutely bizarre, and of course obvious why they would want to do that. So that's the type of stuff that we really, really, really need to fix in the next 4 years to have any chance of it actually mattering long term if Donald Trump is elected. Because like I said, and my beef with the people who are like, they're all the same. Even people like Gregory Mannarino says this, like, there's no difference. I'm like, that is just absolutely, I respect him. I love his videos. I love his material about economics and markets and stuff. But to just say that there's no difference is delusional. It's absolutely delusional. There's a mountain of difference between saying we have two imperfect candidates and there's a couple issues on which they will both fail and saying they're the same. They're literally trying to put political opponents in jail right now. There's people who are still rotting in prison. We have one who's supporting taxes on unrealized capital gains that will certainly go to greater war, would absolute destruction of the economy. Is Donald Trump too favorable to some foreign nations still, like Israel? Yes. Is he going to end the Fed? No. Is he the same? Absolutely not. In fact, I was just on Twitter, and I think it was who it was. I think it was who had a great response to someone who was saying that they're the same. Maybe I can find it under my likes. She broke down all the things that Trump did well, or in his first term and everything. So, and to why it doesn't make sense to just like not vote. Or, I mean, I will never fault someone for not voting if they think the person legitimately is unfit to be leader of the country for whatever reason. Because there are some where it really wouldn't matter, like Romney, McCain, like those are uniparty people. Trump is not part of the uniparty. So here we go. She said, I think it's redheaded libertarian on Twitter. He said, why did it so? Because the people who say it's all the same, it's a mistake. Trump has demonstrated they can't be trusted. A vote for Trump's masters is a vote for Kamala's masters, aka they're the same. And she said, why didn't Trump force the vax on us during COVID? So he was wrong about a lot of things with COVID, but he didn't try to make it mandatory. Why did he turn to the 10th Amendment instead of executive orders during COVID? Why did he broker peace deals in the Middle East? Why did he make the Supreme Court originalist? Why did my taxes go down? Why is he favoring crypto? Why is he bringing Tulsi on to advise foreign policy? Why is she now on a watch list? He wants Vivek on to advise gutting alphabet agencies, RFK to neuter big pharma and big agriculture, and Elon to cut government. Is small government what the masters want? Why did Obama spy on his campaign if they have the same masters? Why did Hillary broker the Steele dossier if they have the same masters? Why are they trying to 14A him, 14th Amendment, if they have the same masters? Why are many of his followers thrown in prison if they have the same masters? Why would WikiLeaks release email of Hillary Clinton calling Trump the Pied Piper candidate? Were we supposed to see those all along? And when asked why they didn't leak any dirt on Trump, Assange responded, there isn't any. So is Assange also beholden to the same masters? Like, it's so obvious the way they treat a true uniparty opposition candidate like George W. Bush, who's now like they're all chummy with them, versus Trump, who are they literally just throwing constant barrage of lawfare to actually try to get him in prison, multiple assassinations attempts. And if you're just one of those idiots who thinks this, all that is done is theater to try to rope in a few of us conservatives who wouldn't, if they have that much control and power, they wouldn't even need to have voting to begin with. It could just actually rig the entire voting system down to every single solitary vote. It would be just bizarre and pointless to do all this theater. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Let's see what else we get. Voted, but was it counted? Well, we'll never know. What election shenanigans are you expecting for vote counting? I'm expecting, based on what I've seen from the campaign, the stuff that they're doing now is desperation. Trotting out, like literally breathlessly coming out for a press conference for 3 minutes to call Trump literally Hitler and another completely obviously bogus sexual assault. These were not things that were like on the calendar a year ago. You know what I mean? This is actual desperation. They don't know what to do. So well, I'm sure they're doing some kind of shenanigans. It's obviously that they don't know that they have this in the bag. Like, they're not just sitting back being like, do whatever you want, we're winning. Because it just would be no need for that because it doesn't even make sense and it didn't help at all. Didn't even like affect the polls or anything. So it's obvious that they don't like know the result. That doesn't mean that they're not doing things to try to affect it, because I'm sure there are, but I'm sure it's all the same sort of stuff that was done last time with just ballot harvesting, things like that. A couple of glitches that suspiciously only mess with some votes, but that type of stuff is only going to be like low single digit margins that they can fuck with, in my opinion, in a couple places where they have a lock on the local, election agencies and everything, and these idiots are allowing them to do all this stuff. So I think the same sort of things. But I also think they know that, well, to some extent, they might be able to use unrest in their favor if they try to pull even more obvious stuff again. There could be literal massive civil unrest that isn't necessarily going to benefit them. Like the whole, oh, the pipes broke, boarded up, everyone go home, 50,000. Because I mean, the whole like Biden spike only even worked, first of all, because it had never really been done before that, obviously. It wasn't that huge of a margin. If they try to do that with millions of votes in multiple states or something after, they're way worse, it won't work as well. And also, it's not going to work as well because there's plenty of evidence now that there isn't that excuse of, well, the Democrats always do better in the mail votes, because we have a lot of the data coming in from all the states now of the mail and early voting, and that difference isn't there. So you can't have these, staunches of votes that are like, well, it's 90% Democrat because they're mail vote or it's early voting stuff or whatever. So it'll just be a lot more difficult in general. And I never do think that even back then was like a long-term plan, top-down, overarching rigging type system. That was just a few. I wouldn't even know if I would bet on whether or not the actual candidates at the time had any knowledge or control over that being done. Certainly, sure they were happy about it, but it seemed to be local because it was actually pretty inept, and it's a disgrace that they were able to get away with some stuff so obvious. My hometown MIC had 75 plus at the rally today. Yeah, it's awesome. Trump came out to the theme song of Undertaker. I saw that. Got to get a good pair of hiking boots if you have any. I got 3 pair from the USAF. I agree. That's definitely something you need. Me and my machete will be okay in a while. Hopefully. Good to know. My wife is commissioner in charge of where I vote. I'm pretty sure I got counted. Awesome. And that's another thing too, is because even these states that are obviously going to go for Trump, we need to run that up, man. Even because if you have like him winning the popular vote overall and stuff, and then you just have one district in like Pennsylvania that has these wonky results, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder for them to get away with that if it's just blowing out everywhere. Especially now that everyone's looking for it specifically and knows what to look for specifically, because we know what things were done goofily last time. And then after, if we do manage to win this one, we have to lock in true voting, paper ballots in person with ID, no Dominion voting systems, no mail voting or any of that nonsense. Reward work, not wealth, but real wages are down. He's trying to force a tax break for the rich. Who, Trump? He's trying to make there's nothing wrong with tax breaks for the rich, but taxes should be down for everyone. The government budget issue is not related to not enough income through taxes. There is no amount of taxing that we could do to the rich or anyone else that would fix the budget picture. You could take all the people's money, all the billionaires, well, not even billionaires, anyone who has like $100 million or more, all the so-called rich people, you could take every single penny that they own and give it to the government. And you know how long it would fund the government? Something like 8 months. It's irrelevant what the taxes are when they're spending like this. It's literally irrelevant what we tax anyone, rich or otherwise. Anyone who's talking about what taxes should be before fixing what spending is, just doesn't even know what the problem is. Taxes are irrelevant at the current path of spending. You paid for vote in Idaho. Excellent. And like I said, Trump is not perfect. Far from it. He's many beats. And like I said, it's a disgrace, kind of. It's to our shame as a country that he is by far the best leader that we've had in decades. But he is the best that we've had in decades. And he is far from being an evil. He is not perfect. There are some things that he is wrong on. There's some things that he is disastrously wrong on. And hopefully his mind can be changed on this. But he is not an evil. And to say that would not be far, 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 far better than the alternative, it's just nonsense in my mind. But think what you want. I'll still help you break out of the gulag. Like I told you, though, I might not get the chance. Because if I go to the gulag, I'm not just going to waste away. I'm taking out a couple guards. 2 guards, that's my goal. And they'll kill me, probably. Unless we can do if you get a good plan for escape, I'm on board. But I'm not just going to waste away. I've read too many prison camp books to just waste away in the gulag. Cut the government size by 90%. Yeah, quite literally, I think we could cut by 90%. Certainly, if you're just talking about number of agencies, the vast majority of these federal agencies should not even exist. What's up, Tom M? And I really hope that Trump is serious about letting Elon or anyone come in and gut a lot of these things the way that they're talking about it, because it's absolutely necessary if we want any chance of fixing the fiscal situation. And speaking of the fiscal situation, I was talking with some friends and stuff about the BRICS thing. And like I said, from what I understand, there wasn't a dip in gold, certainly not yet. But there hasn't really been a spike either after the meeting. It hasn't really shot up. It's just continuing its climb. But so much of this, what I'm focusing on, like what the price of gold right now, like the price of gold at all is sort of irrelevant to me, because like whether it's 3,000, whether it's 5,000, whether it's almost irrelevant to me. I hope it crashes because I want to get more, because what's inevitably going to happen, whether Trump wins or not, but even if he wins, it might take a little longer, hopefully, or it might be quicker, because then the deep state type insiders may just be like, fuck you, we want it to fail under his watch, and do everything they can to, because they're definitely trying to keep that stuff afloat. In fact, Chris Martenson had a very interesting video recently where he was looking at the amount of money that was created and how it relates to what they've disclosed the government has spent this money on, like their actual budgets and the rules that allow them to hide their spending. And there was like $500 billion that was spent but not accounted for, basically because you can tell they can hide what they're spending due to these rules, which are unconstitutional, but they can't hide as easily yet what money was created. And there's that gap there, $500 or $600 billion. And his thesis is that this was probably used to prop up the markets with direct, by the Fed and whatnot. It was spending used to prop up the markets in what could certainly be classified as in-kind campaign contributions, because we know that favors incumbency when you're stopping it from crashing. So they're probably going to stop all that. So it could happen even faster, but it depends, because there'll be more hope. If Trump wins, I definitely expect to see a short-term, at least short-term, might not be too short-term, but a pretty quick spike in the markets, probably a little decrease in gold, as some people are like, wow, he's going to be good for the markets, we don't need gold anymore, kind of thing. But that doesn't fix the situation that the US is in with the currency, with the monetary system, with everyone leaving for BRICS and stuff. But it may give us a little more time to buy up that gold and silver, or they may try to tank it quicker. It's hard to say. But my point was that regardless whether that makes gold go back to 1,800 or 2,000, or whether it immediately goes up to 3,000 or 3,500, like that is irrelevant. See, like I want to get more gold in exchange for the Federal Reserve notes that I have right now. But the issue that I'm looking at, it all comes down to when the money flees the debt markets. When that fall, like Gregory Maynard is always talking about, there will be a time when the money is going to flee the debt markets, when this fiat debt-based system fails and everyone is getting out. And at that point, talking about the price of gold, like how many dollars is it to get an ounce of gold? You might as well ask how many packing peanuts it takes to get an ounce of gold, because that's what's going to happen. It will just be instantaneously. There will be no one who will give you gold for dollars. And that could happen literally within a matter of hours. Hopefully it will be a matter of days or weeks, so we have some warning. But that's why personally I'm just focused on getting it now, and it's irrelevant in that sense, whether it's 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,500, 4,500. Like obviously I would rather the more ounces, the better. So I wanted to see that go down in the short term and by any means possible. But when that finally happens, it will be irrelevant. Talking about price, like I said, it'll be like dirt, like dirt. You could say, how much dirt do I need to give you to get that gold? It'll be the same type of question. Like, why would anyone take dirt for their gold? And that's the exact question they'll have is why would anyone give you actual money forged in the heart of a dying star in exchange for something worthless? But they will give it to you right now because they don't know yet. They don't know that it's worthless. So do it now. That's not financial advice. That's just the ravings of a lunatic who has seen gold beat the markets this year. The USA needs to hire the president of Argentina as a consultant. I think they get him and Bukele from El Salvador. BRICS nations do not as yet have their own specific digital currency. Exactly. They're building the unit, Enbridge unit for international settlements. But there's no, all evidence points to them actually being able to do this and getting it done and having plenty of countries on board. So it might, because I have a friend who really doesn't believe and thinks all these countries are corrupt pieces of shit, and so this could never work long term. And I'm like, that may be right. I don't necessarily agree with it to that extent. I think it's very like your U.S. centric vision that it's just, oh, these countries are joke. I mean, these are countries that, like, obviously I believe in America and the American way of life and values more than all these other countries. But this isn't, they're not all Nigeria and, you know, stuff like that. Like this is China and Russia and countries that have space programs. And in some particular arenas, technology that exceeds our own. Like these are not just complete jokes, you know. You can at least get this off the ground. It doesn't matter if it lasts 5 years or 50 years. It's the switch. Like I said with the packing peanuts, it could, the BRIC system could fail almost instantly, but there will be no going back to the dollar once it's left. One could, because the dollar is worthless outside of the fact that it is being used as the international of trade. Once that stops happening, true value of the dollar is exposed, and there is no going back to everyone being like, oh, okay, well, let's just start using the dollar again. That would never happen. Can't happen. So it really doesn't matter if the BRIC system fails after even a year. Once that's, because that switch is just going to be instantaneous, and it will go from what it is now to the packing peanuts that I mentioned before, where it would just, there is no use for it. And then America as a country at that point loses all of its international clout, with the exception of the military equipment that's they're still able to afford to keep up and running at that point, which won't be much. Yes, the government and economy are broken beyond repair, hopelessly broken. And mercifully, for our sake, the rest of the world hasn't yet admitted that to themselves yet, or they have, and they're taking action slowly, which is I think what the BRICS is doing. But you can use gold to bribe a guard, but the guard could also just steal it from you. Yeah, it's always a risk. North Korea, Iran, and Cuba have been known to limit or reject these dollars in certain transactions. Yeah, so did Libya and Iraq too. Saw what happened to them, but they can't do the same thing to Russia and China and Iran, especially all working together. It's very interesting times. So if you guys, we have 55 people now, and what I appreciate if you could just take a brief moment to do a little fingering of my like button. See, to the extent that makes any difference, it's only a positive one if it does make a difference. Tactical Muffin Top says, what is up? Stack food, water purification, and wool blankets. I agree. Because all this comes down to the commonality of preparedness, with the exception of specifically focusing on the financial stuff like I have with gold, the dollar. Regardless of what happens, our needs are going to be the same. We need protection, we need shelter, we need food, we need medicine. So I think the big ones outside of the absolute basic food and survival preps like that, shelter, food, water, is the medical, something like a Jace Medical or what was the other one? Contingency Medical. I really don't care which one you get. I'll put the Jace link in the description. They're adding more and more to those. I think you can even get like ivermectin and stuff now, but that stuff's all made overseas, at least a huge portion of it. So it could get tremendously expensive in the or will in the future, just like everything else, and maybe very hard to come by. And some sort of nuclear preparedness, biological preparedness. I love my mirror gas mask and those great filters. But you can just for the fallout specifically, you can get away with much cheaper stuff if you have to. Watch my video that I just did recently called "A Poor Man's Guide to Nuclear Preparedness." Yeah, tickle that button, please. Appreciate it, Kanzi. Number 20. Yeah, so then, but it really is just going to come down to the basics. But I think for a lot of us, because financial stuff is going to be a big, you're going to still have to, I don't foresee it getting so bad that we don't have to worry about paying our property taxes or paying our rent or paying our, power bill. Hopefully the power is still working. But if it is, we have to pay for it. And it's very likely that it will be only working intermittently and we'll still have to pay for it. We'll pay for your internet. We'll pay for, all this stuff. So I think having some cash on hand, absolutely critical, literal cash on hand, not in your bank account, and then having resources that will be resistant to inflation / dollar collapse. And I'm going to do a video. I forget who was talking about it. Was doing a someone had asked him, like, they're basically just starting, and I always forget that these people are still out there. Like, I talk about this stuff all the time, but I have hundreds of videos over 15 years. Not everyone has seen them all. So all these basic topics come up again and again. So like if you really like just haven't done any prepping and you're like, shit, I need to do something. This world's getting wild. What should you spend your money on? And so I'm planning on doing a video of like the first 500,000, 500, comma, 1,000, comma, $1,500 that I would spend if I literally had to start over preparedness from zero. And there's some really, as with most things, there's some low-hanging fruit in terms of like Pareto principle. Like there's 20% of the things that you could get as a prepper will take care of 80% of your preparedness and get you most of the way there. So that's useful to know still. Wool, merino wool. No other fiber can match all merino wool's benefits for you. Yeah, wool is great, especially for underwear and socks specifically. You can't, once you make the change to wool socks, it's just obvious how inferior the others are in terms of capabilities, and how long they last, insulation, that your feet stink less, and all that stuff. So that goes for a lot of clothing as well. All that original stuff, people had it right. The leather, the wool, the stuff out of wood and metal. Everything nowadays is plastic, and it's terrible. Even stuff like this is plastic. It's part polyester. Probably it's some of the reason why we have microplastics in our balls and shit. So I shouldn't, but natural stuff is usually best and lasts longer, but it is more expensive, unfortunately. So cotton always isn't better for clothing in a lot of situations, especially cold weather stuff. But it's still good in terms of it's natural. So again, let me hit me with some viewer questions here or topics that you want to talk about, and I'll probably for another 10 minutes or so. As he said, Australian wool is suited to the manufacturing of the world's highest quality apparel and high-end fashion garments. Good to know. Those sheeps. I like sheeps. Eventually, I'll probably have a sheep farm, but I don't actually like doing all the work. I just want the delicious mutton. And to not have to have the government. Oh, memes. We'll do the memes. I forgot I had memes for you guys. Let's hit our memes. So let me move. So, let's do stream memes. Let's go. All right, so we'll share screen. All right, can you see that? So this is actually not a meme. I got this beautiful truck, which I love it. But there's a meme that is related to the truck because I named the truck Dark Gary. It will be explained by the memes. So that's Dark Gary. It's fantastic companion for the apocalypse. And then the memes are me. Are Medusa's pubes snakes too? The accountant. I meant questions about your tax return. So stupid. And then we have, I can't believe he didn't fry during the Titanic. Do men even have feelings? We apologize for dying. Rough. Paul Harrell, for those of you guys who don't know, great guy, awesome firearms channel. And he had, I think it was pancreatic cancer. And he filmed, if you're watching, he literally filmed, if you're watching this, I'm dead video. And basically apologized for dying. And it was awful. But he's a great dude and a good channel. You should check it out. His brother's continuing with my channel. So this is the meme that I saw years ago. Where was a typo for some Chinese hat thing where it's dark Gary and light Gary. Obviously, they're trying to say gray. So then there were a bunch of memes like, inside you, there are two Garys, dark Gary and light Gary. And I was looking at the color and I was thinking of the truck and I was like, is this a gunmetal? Is it gray or silver? I'm like, it's kind of dark gray. So then I was thinking of this meme. So I was like, that settles it. He has been christened Dark Gary. Then we have the I'll tread wherever I want, sweetie, the cat lady meme. And then he sees what it really looks like and says, there's no man in the house, please rob me. Too true, too true. And then we got the blue-haired girl saying, imagine celebrating the losing side, Civil War people. And then Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. And then my home printer, the one time of year I ask it to actually print something. So you can't do this to me. They do seem to be annoyingly fickle for some reason. Printers, awful. And then when I win the lottery, I won't tell anyone, but there will be signs. This is me dropping warm soapy water on India. And then this one was funny. When you accidentally become important at work. I felt like this a few times. Like this goofy bean mascot dude trying to act normal in a business meeting. And then we have girls with a time machine. I'm your granddaughter. Really? Me with a time machine. Hello, Art Bell. I'm a time traveler. For those of you who didn't enjoy Art Bell, it was the Coast to Coast AM, right? Good stuff, good stuff. And then we have my Halloween costume where I was a pirate. My girlfriend was my trusted parrot. And then this one was totally random, but I thought it was hilarious. He said, so Mr. Turtle, what's it like being alive for over 100 years? And he just says, I'm incredibly racist. And then, of course, you guys know what I'm into. It says, I'm a reasonable man made to do unreasonable things, but on a budget. And it's just a tiny little electric forklift that has been killdozerized with some sheet metal. And then waiter, kids under 12 eat for free. He's actually 9. Or dad, he's 9. Actually, I'm that freaks out. And then how Tolkien slept in 1937 after writing a bestseller with no female characters. He just doesn't care. Ultimate Chad mode. Funny stuff. And then this guy said, 5 years ago, I looked at myself and said, the worst dissertation is the one I don't write, before proceeding to write the second worst dissertation. I've never even had to write a dissertation, but that was still fun. And then it's totally me sapling. You get choosing between 10 more minutes of sleep or find out how jelly beans are made. Oh. Me at 1 a.m. And this one is sad, but very apropos. Can I see your ID? No, sir, I'm voting today. Goes to show you the hypocrisy like we were just talking about a few minutes ago. And then the same topic as well. Help me, Dominion. You're my only hope. Also, not that funny, unfortunately. This would crack me up. Me, you'd have to be a fucking dummy to believe literally anything they say on the news at this point. My liberal friend. I'm your Huckleberry. Says the car they recommend to save the planet's future. Kind of car I recommend to save the planet's future. And that was all. That was your memes. Not the biggest meme dump of all time, but I wanted to make sure we got back to our glory days of actually doing the meme dumps. So let's see what you guys. Microplastics in my semen makes it high viscosity. Yeah, could be. Could use this fucking motor oil, maybe. Memes, memes, memes. Amen. Plus, how is Jay doing? As far as I know, he's doing well. I need to talk to him more often. I was just literally saw something that Dan posted on Facebook the other day. I need to get both slash either of those guys on again, and it has been not for any particular reason they haven't been on. I just and now that I'm seems like I don't want to jinx myself, but it seems like I've been able to keep up a almost every week pace with my live streams. It's much more able to tell them, hey, do you want to be on next week? Because the reason I hadn't been doing it for so long is I was so inconsistent that I didn't want to say, do you want to do this week? And then turns out I can't do it. But definitely gonna have those guys back on at some point for sure. Hope they're both doing well. And Paul did have a good channel. It's a great pick of your Halloween costume. Appreciate it. But yeah, I appreciate you guys. Once again, like I said, check out my Patreon if you want a chance to win. We got a few more days in this month before you can win Lee Hoo's great little emergency radio, fire extinguisher, and the emergency light. Dibs on top bunk in the gulag. You gotta fight me for it. And appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you soon. Got more videos coming.